Hello, everyone. If you have tuned into this presentation, this recording, uh, you are going to hear a lot of expertise from our four amazing panelists. And before we go into the entire series, we wanted to introduce ourselves so that you get a little bit of an idea about what to expect from this amazing program. My name is Shruti Mukkamala. I am a clinical psychologist by training. I'm a senior staff psychologist currently living in Irvine, California. And I wanted to provide a land acknowledgement before I go into providing more of an introduction. So you see Irvine, and Irvine itself is located on the homelands of the Ashaman and the Tongva peoples, who in the face of ongoing settler colonialism continue to claim their place and act as stewards of their ancestral lands as they have for the past 8,000 years. This region extends from the Santa Ana River to Aliso Creek and beyond. I am also, along with Dr. Jennifer Young, a co-chair of the International Task Force for Section 5, which is a section on AAPI feminists, within Division 35, which is the division on women, within the larger American Psychological Association. The purpose of this international task force is not only to explore issues that are pertinent to international psychologists living in the US, but to also internationalize our understanding of psychology and move it maybe from this more Western American focused perspective, which is what this current program that you're about to see and participate in is about. Without further ado, I will transfer to my co-chair, Dr. Jennifer Young.
Hi, everyone. Shruti did an excellent job of introducing us in Section 5. I'll just also add that I am calling in from the land of the Kumeyaay peoples, which is also known as San Diego. I also work in the District of Columbia. I'm licensed both in the state of California as well as DC, and DC sits on the land of Anacostans. Both Shruti and I think that it is important to do land acknowledgements. I know for myself, I've learned it through the years by speaking with different international psychologists and watching them do that, but the therapist who really encouraged me and normalized land acknowledgement and really got me thinking about that all of us here in the United States are occupiers is Melody Lee, who is a therapist based in Texas and also the developer creator of inclusivetherapists.com. So I just wanted to give credit where credit is due, and I think that is perfect for the theme of this series is kind of, learning about international practices from the Asia Pacific Island, from people who either are born and raised in those lands or continue to be there, and giving credit where credit is due.
So our aim in having this short introduction also was to help people maybe provide a few reactions about what we felt going through each of these different recordings. I know we will all participate in a live panel later, but we wanted to maybe get people thinking about what they're about to see in these panels. So I don't know if Jen, you wanted to get us started.
Sure. You're going to see our panelists present in the ways that they feel more comfortable. And this was part of our initial conversations with each of the panelists. Some feel more comfortable using a PowerPoint, and others do not feel comfortable using a PowerPoint. They wanted to be interviewed, or they wanted just to speak off the cuff and read their notes. And we definitely, I don't want to say allowed, but we accepted that because it was in line of kind of respecting people's learning and teaching styles, and kind of being less ethnocentric in that way, right? Like expecting us to have everyone have a PowerPoint presentation. So that was initially what came up. And I guess we could just jump right into it.
Sure.
Some of the reactions we had. one that Shruti mentioned earlier in another conversation we had was with one of the panelists, and maybe this happened to some extent with everyone. Um, I felt, and I'll own it, I felt a need to get the panelists to say things in a way that I felt like the audience needed to hear it.
Yes.
Right. And so there was a lot of kind of like trying to finagle my question a certain way so that the response could come out a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Shruti and I talked about it after, Shruti, I think what you said was it's interesting that in a way we have a colonized version or a colonized way of learning or
Yeah.
expecting information to be delivered to us.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely, right? Feeling a little impatient even. It's like, will the audience understand this? What's being said? Because it's not coming out in the bite size version that we're expecting, right? That clear, this is a question and this is the answer.
Yes.
And I think for me, it really took a lot of going back and saying this is still expertise, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's not being expressed in
Mm-hmm.
a way that we're conditioned to believe an expert would respond, right? Like when
Mm-hmm.
I think of an expert, it's like someone who knows the answer as soon as I ask the question, right? So when
Exactly.
someone isn't responding in that way, but they still have this expertise that's coming from years of experience and like their own experience, how do I honor that?
That's right.
And learn to work with their style rather than asking them to conform to our style, which I think is a lot of what happens when we're thinking about even healing and medicine from a Western perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I think that just came up for me based on what you were saying was that I felt was very different from a traditional, maybe US perspective is the importance of experience and wisdom that
Mm-hmm.
all of our panelists shared. And they were talking about traditions that are thousands of years old. And there is such a respect for someone who has done something for many years or has practiced something for many years. And I think each of them shared it in their own way. And it's very contrasting to the US perspective where youth and something being cutting edge and something being very new are what is valued a lot more. I think it was a real reminder that everything that's old isn't really outdated,
That's
right?
right.
And there's a reason why it's existing or continuing to exist for so long.
Hmm. It also makes me think hearing you speak right now about what repackaging does,
Mm-hmm.
like what secularizing and repackaging does. I mean, there's certainly benefits and drawbacks from doing either, but that's what it made me think of too as we were listening to each of the panelists.
Mm-hmm. Yes, specifically around, I think the two things that came up was yoga and mindfulness. Right? And yoga, our first panelist talked about it as being a tradition within India and Hinduism, especially, and a way of life almost. But some people who practice yoga in the US and are very strong and, steady practitioners don't know the origins or understand that it actually originated in India and in that area. The same thing is happening with mindfulness, right? It's in some ways it's stripped off of all of the religious and cultural connotations and
Hmm.
packaged as something that's very specific to the US
Hmm.
or the West, and it's kind of the people who are doing the packaging and doing all of the presentations and coming up with all of these therapies are benefiting out of it, right? There is a real benefit to them. And so what happens when these traditions are taken from different places, but then there is no credit given when that credit is due? I
Hmm.
think those were really thoughts that I was grappling with after we did all of the recordings.
Hmm. That's right. The other thing I'll mention, which you just mentioned before we started recording, was the dress of some of the speakers. I think all of them in one way or another, that professional looks different if we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking, less ethnocentrically, more ethno-relativistically. So that was a piece that stood out. So we really appreciated that too. Were
Yes.
there other things we wanted to bring up? I'm sure we could keep talking.
No, I think that's it. I really hope the audience will form their own reactions.
Yes.
Please make a list of the questions that come up for you so we can ask them to our panelists when they're live on June 13th or 14th, based on where they are at in the world, right? So please, I think give yourself some time as you're watching this. That would be, I think, one of the biggest uh, hopes that I have, is that you give time to hear the expertise of our panelists.
Yes. Yes. Very well said. All right. Without further ado, here we go.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today. We are here with Dr. Nalini Rao, who's joining us from Chennai, India this evening for us, morning for her. Let me just introduce Dr. Rao. She holds a master's in philosophy and a PhD in social work and is currently a research guide for doctoral students. She retired from serving 2 decades as a professor and the head of the Department of Social Work at Madras School of Social Work. Dr. Rao was also the Dean of the Banyan Academy of Leadership and Mental Health, also known as BALM for short, which is a sister organization of the Banyan. Currently, she is the chairperson of social work at the Banyan, and Dr. Rao's expertise is in working with children, mental health, and social development. As a response from the World Health Organization's movement to shift its attention to mental health in lower resource countries, Dr. Rao designed postgraduate and predoctoral programs and a diploma in community mental health care. Dr. Rao has conducted and evaluated several community development projects. She's published in national and international scholarly journals. She's functioned as an advisor at notable academic institutions and is a consultant for research and training in mental health, gender, health, physical health, and life skills. She's done so much. She's recently been nominated by the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu as a member of the State Police Reform Commission. So I know the list goes on and on with the years of service you've given, all the hard work that you've done for the people of India, and we are just so excited to have you here to share your knowledge and expertise with us. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Rao.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Jen. I'd like to thank both Jen and Shruti for giving me this opportunity, this platform to share some thoughts about Indian systems of medicine and faith healing practices, along with clinical approaches for the treatment of the mentally ill. My presentation will be of 2 parts. We need to start from the first slide. Yeah. So this presentation will be of 2 parts. The first one would be a brief introduction and overview of the Indian systems of medicine. And the second is followed by the new approaches in healing the mentally ill. In India, next. In India, we have multiple options to avail treatment and healing that are very holistic in nature. These multiple healing systems, it includes spiritual healing, indigenous systems, otherwise known as alternate medicine, and as well as the Western biomedical approach, which is our mainstream medicine, introduced by the British when they colonized our country. But of late, there's been an increasing trend to integrate local systems and modern clinical practices to treat illnesses, including mental illness. Now, there are 2 important streams of healing. One is the spiritual or faith healing, which is very non-formal, unstructured. It's based purely on the skill and experience of the faith healers. Learn these techniques learned, from their guru or their teacher, or through generations, their families who practice faith healing. The other one is the indigenous alternate systems of Indian medicine, which is a very more formalized structure, where we have evidence-based textbooks and across all illnesses, includes symptoms, diagnosis, treatment methodologies. And we have regular medical courses and training recognized by the Indian Medical Council that offers UG and PG degrees. both by the private and government colleges. Next. Next. So let me introduce something about Indian systems of medicine. The Ministry of Ayush, the central government, was very keen to promote these indigenous systems of medicine because it was relegated to the background with the advent of the modern Western medicine. So Ayush is an acronym for Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, and Yoga. Homeopathy also, the H stands for homeopathy. Now, this Ministry of Ayush, we have a cabinet rank minister and a minister of state. And Ayush, we have about 4,000 Ayush hospitals and clinics across our country. And also we have about 60,000 registered practitioners practicing one of the systems of medicine. Next. Now, Ayurveda is one of the ancient forms of Indian medicine, started by Shushruta in 600 BC. He's brought out a Shushruta Samhita, a huge textbook, some sort of Bible, which is a major fountain of knowledge, including surgery in India. Next. So if you look at Ayurveda, it says it's the philosophy of Ayurveda. I mean, it is the same across all our Indian systems of medicines. Also, it's a balance between our body, senses, mind, and spirit, and social well-being. So this concept has been echoed by WHO's definition of health and mental health also. Now, Ayurveda is a very, very holistic system of approach where the patient is treated as a person and not a sum of parts. There's no extreme specializations that you find elsewhere in Ayurveda. All diseases and illnesses are an interaction of the mind and the body, the psyche and the soma. Ayurveda also insists on the connectedness between the individual and his immediate environment, and finally the universe. Subsequently, you see how these connections are brought about, because this connection is so evident in all our religious practices where we do worship nature, different plants, animals, everything is brought into the domain of religion in India. So the person who treats and who belongs to this school of thought is called a Vaid or a Vaidyar. Next. Next. So the entire Ayurveda is based on Panchabhutas. Pancha means 5 life elements. These life elements, air, ether, fire, water, and earth, you find them in all organisms, man, animal, plant, whatever you see. These are the life-giving elements that sustains life at all points of time. Next. Medicine. This is again a very scientific approach in the treatment of illness and healing. This was drawn primarily from Greco-Persia, Arabic, that part of the world, and is based on teachings of Hippocrates and Galen. This is again a very traditional medicine practiced by the Muslim in South Asia, fairly across the Middle East also. The Unani system medicine offers treatment to all sorts of diseases. It can address any of our human systems or organs, any complicated diseases, including skin, liver, musculoskeletal, even reproductive organs. It can also look into one of those immunological lifestyle disorders and so on. So it's a very effective form of treatment done by the Unani doctors who are known called as Hakims. And mostly like Ayurveda, Unani also tries to promote positive health and prevention of diseases. It also recommends very regimented lifestyle in terms of diet, fasting, and exercises. And it uses different modalities for treatments depending upon the diagnosis. Now coming to Siddha. Siddha medicine is found, traditional system, once again, it's found in South India. Siddha medicine, as history says, the narrative goes, the oldest form of medicine, somewhere around emerged around the same time as Ayurveda, if not before. And Siddha, they say, is a medicine that was given directly from Lord Shiva. That's why Siddha, Shiva, that's how the name comes. And it is also a combination, much more, not so much as you see in Ayurveda. It is much more a combination of mysticism and alchemy and spirituality than other medical clinical practices. You find that the local healers are called siddhas. And again, when you look at the siddhas, they are more like people who have renounced the world. They are people who stay in temples or in some remote forest or caves. But nevertheless, people know that these siddhas are living in these points and you can easily access them. Siddha medicine also emphasizes on the 5 elements that you find and how all these 5 elements like earth, water, fire, air, and ether are all the original basis for all existence. So Siddha also insists on meditation, pranayama, herbal and mineral treatment. You find that yoga is a common denominator for all the systems of medicine. Without exercise and diet, the treatment is not complete. Minerals here would be sometimes some of the herbal concoctions that are given to the patients and has got lead content in it. But the lead content, they say it is not too heavy and fairly negligible. So in Siddha also you find the mind is the seat of all mental illness, the functioning, and the alteration of the mood can produce mental illness and influence physical behavior. And according to the system, psychiatric diseases are treated by the enhancing the power of the here. What they say is by making to revitalize the brain through certain therapeutic measures like herbal powder or application of medicated oil over the body or inhalation of certain burning of certain herbs or nasal drops are given or external medicines are given to that. So there are very several treatment approaches for the same illness here and yoga practices are very important, like I said earlier, which influences the functioning of the central nervous system. And again, here in Siddha also looks into the various humors that needs to, the altered humors that is precipitating the illness, and to strengthen all the sapta sadhus, all the 7 physical constituents of the body. And Siddha also influences, not influences, Siddha also emphasizes, better quality of life for the psychiatric patients. And it's able to very great extent, prevent and manage psychiatric disorders. So that's why you find that, when you look into prevention of mental illness or promotion of well-being through Siddha, Unani, or Ayurveda, you find the stigma is not so high. But when you let it go, when an illness or psychiatric illness goes unattended and it becomes too much to handle, that's when the entire social stigma starts for the patient and the family. Now, one main takeaways from these systems of medicine is they view the person as a whole, one entity, not a sum of the parts. There's no super specialties or specialities in these systems of medicines that you find elsewhere. And they always say the problem is within you, because the problem is there because how you process your experiences. That's very important. Suppose you find that someone shouts at you and you process it as something very insulting, it just affected your self-esteem. That is one way. If you look at other person who has shouted at you, but it's just a way of life and you just shrug it off and walk away, that is how you process your experiences. And much of the healing is within you. Unless you take an active part in the healing process, it will be very, very difficult for you to get over it. So you cannot disconnect yourself and to the entire healing process. And the healer can only facilitate the healing process, and he's not responsible totally for you to heal. And both mind and body are to be focused. Physical exercise, diet, prayers, self-discipline is very important components of the treatment process. And the healer also needs to take care, and that is very important. And the relationship or the vibrations between the healer and the seeker goes a long way in alleviating the distress faced by the patient. And yoga is just a way of life. It needs to be practiced every day, and it's not just a one-off that you do it now and after 3 weeks you start again. It is a way of life, and you find that spirituality, religion, diet, exercise, self-discipline, regimented way of life is some sort of it's a cornerstone for all these systems of medicine. And all of them, all these systems of medicine believe there's a lot of negative energies which disturbs the humoral balance, and there are ways to remove these negative energies, which one is called the Buddha Suddhi, where you can remove your negative energies by a good bath. When you have your bath, you're removing your negative. It's just not pouring water over your body. Or when you take a shower, it's not pouring water over your body. You're just pouring water to wash away all your negative energies. Also, when you have the mud bath, or the fire is when you suspect an evil eye has affected you. So in India, we burn the camphor and show it before the individual to absorb all the negative energies. And wind wash is something that they recommend, especially when you go to the beach and you just allow the wind to just blow your hair and the entire body, where it just washes away or blows away your negative energies. So burning of incense is very common practice in Indian homes, especially in the evenings. Incense sticks are again made of a lot of chemicals, but we have a very organic compound called sambrani, where they burn in the evenings, and this smoke permeates across the house in all the rooms, to especially the corners are shown. This burning sambrani is shown in the corners of the room to drive away the negative energies. Neem leaves plays a very important part. Almost every house has got a neem tree, where the wind that passes through the neem tree and neem leaves seems to be give a healing touch, and is able to ward off the evil eyes and so on. So these are some of the basics. I've not gone into detail. So those who are interested can explore on their own to get know more about this. This brings to a close to the first part of my presentation. Now, pathways to mental health care. Here, like I said, illness, non-recognition, even if you have symptoms like anxiety and depression, it's always looked upon as a part of growing up. It will go away once once they reach adulthood. And so it's not even looked upon as something that needs to be, consulted or treated at all. But in case the symptoms persist, then home remedies are very much there for us. And or the temple priests, the horoscopes, all of us have horoscopes that are consulted. Temple visits are done to propitiate the gods. And we have specific temples designated purely to cure mental illness. And you do find that most of the home remedies is a part of our Indian kitchen spice box. Like you have cumin, coriander, ginger, garlic, turmeric, pepper. These are the basic ingredients you find in all Ayurvedic preparations also. So these are all the grandma remedies that we normally have. So whenever symptoms emerge, we really don't rush to the doctor. We see 2-3 days, we take these concoctions or whatever it is, and then see whether it subsides, or still if it persists, only then a doctor is consulted. But for mental illness, what happens is they come too late to the clinic. So the doctors, the prognosis becomes very bad, or they the defaulters are very high. They come once and they don't come back again also. Sometimes they don't come at all for medical consultation. They're just allowed to roam around in the villages or in the towns, or just kept at home and locked up in a room and sometimes like that. But some do come to the hospital for treatment, but that's a bit too late in the day. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. And these are some of the sources from which I've taken the material. For those interested, can always go back and explore and see and learn more about what Indian systems of medicine is and what healing is. Those who want, again, I repeat, can go and explore. And those who want to visit India, please do come. And before I close, I'd like to thank all of you all for this patient listening. Thank you so much.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to at whatever time zone you're joining us from. This is the second part of our panel of experts who are sharing their traditions and their healing practices with us. Today, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Yvonne Awana. Dr. Awana is a transpersonal therapist and holds a doctorate degree in clinical psychology. She was spiritually trained throughout her childhood by her family. During the years, Dr. Awana worked closely with indigenous healers, shamans, psychics, and transmediums. She continues to be a student of the course called A Course in Miracles. Dr. Awana facilitates sessions nationally and locally and has conducted healing seminars in Hawaii for the past 30 years. Dr. Awana is very dedicated in guiding individuals towards their spiritual truth. She was a professor for 18 years in a clinical psychology doctorate program and is a published author of the book Religion and Spirituality for Diverse Women. Currently, Dr. Awana is collaborating with Dr. Una Starr on a book based on traumatic bonding. Welcome, Dr. Awana. It's our pleasure to have you here with us and for you to share your expertise with us. We'd like to start off by asking you if you could describe a little bit about the history of the practices that you use in your work.
The history of what I do currently, really, the gift has to go to my grandmother. And the history began, I think, the moment I was born. And my grandmother was an incredible, beautiful healer on the island of Kauai. Many people around the island used to come and sit in circle with her. So she made a very big impact on my life. And when she passed, she came to me. I had my son, Blaine, on my hip. And many of you do know this, and washing rice with the other. And she had come to me and she said, you know, Yvonne, you're going to carry on where I couldn't anymore. And she passed at the age of 62. And I knew from that day forward, I made a commitment to love, basically. And so with that training, you know, meeting incredible transpersonal therapists, living on 3 beautiful islands, Kauai, Oahu, and Guam, has been magical. My family has been very, very supportive of my work throughout my life. And of course, additionally, psychology brought in just a different avenue so that I can express some of these spiritual teachings to my students, who I'm very proud of, and most of them are doctors now practicing. The greatest gift for me, too, as far as teachers, is all my relationships. And that's how I learned about spirituality in many ways, is through relationships. And it's not only through individuals or family members, but it's through like salt, yeah? I have a relationship with salt. Every time I do blessings, I use salt. Or when I work with clients, our ocean, the mountain, the beautiful flowers that we have here. I have a relationship with all of them, including the animals. Yeah, so in a nutshell, historically is through my relationships with all people. And some of them people will look upon as conflictual. And those relationships that were conflictual, they were my greatest teachers. They taught me areas within my own personal that I had to look at, but it was too painful. I was so afraid. Yeah. So they basically gave me the gift to gently look at those parts.
That's
So I
great,
hope
Dr.
I answered your question.
Yes, no, that's great. I think as you were talking, it was bringing me to a question. You talked about your students who are now practicing. So I guess one question for you is, how does your tradition, how does your practice view what we in the US or, you know, the Western kind of psychological models would call mental illness or, you know, mental health difficulties? How do you view that and how do you work with that?
Let me preface it, is that I'm an embodied entity. With that comes the gift of my beautiful rage, my beautiful grief, all the feelings I have in being embodied. Yeah. So that's really, I can say, well, you know, APA has a place for me. They have a division, I think, for transpersonal psych or something like that, spirituality. Yeah. And what you two ladies are doing also. I think what's happening, which is exciting, but it's kind of slow for me, you know, the pace it's going. Psychology is beginning to bring back the philosophical assumptions, the epistemology, ontological assumptions, the axiological assumptions, and you see that in our theories. And we all have them. But I thought I had to say those three nice words because they sound really academic. And I talk about them, but yeah, I think psychology is moving forward. It's people like the both of you that I have done such beautiful work out there globally, you know, and you keep paying it forward. And I think that's what psychology is doing with ladies like you, men that is going out and being on that edge. And there have been thousands of us out there, years and years. The great healers, you know, the Native Americans, my Chamorro people, and actually a lot of doctors, medical doctors. Dr. Brew Joy, one of my teachers who passed, was a medical doctor, and he learned from an elder, Native Hawaiian elder here. So the integration of medicine and spirituality is really important. They even have, what is that? I think it was at Queen's Hospital here, Healing Touch, where it's like hands-on. They're doing that. So the incorporation, that's it in a personal level. On a spiritual level, well, my grandmother basically told me every day, you're a child of God. And I would say, yeah. And then later, I knew what she was saying. If I'm a child of God, like a puppy is a child of a dog. You know, so I tell people, think about it. And what that means is, in this world of embodiment, there is duality, good, bad, black, white. In the spiritual realm, what I wish I could live forever in, which I am and I'm not, there is no illness. When grandmother did her healing, she saw no cancer in the person. She saw them as a child of God. And with that was her full belief that this person in front of her is not sick. I later studied the Course in Miracles, which is, you know, channeled by, I think, psychologists that didn't believe in this stuff. The Course says too, that it's an illusion. The Seichinoe Sutra from Japan channeled by another Japanese doctor, that it is an illusion, mental illness, any type of illness, because we're perfect as we are. We just kind of forgot. But we're waking up. Sometimes waking up hurts. Yeah, it's like coming down the birth canal. Probably was painful. I don't remember, but anyway. Yeah, so that's, I think it's wonderful. I think it's exciting. We're doing stuff like this, and people globally around the world are coming. And the richness, I think, for me, of the cultures coming together.
Yeah.
Irwani, I wonder if I could ask a question because you mentioned the native, I think Hawaiians you were referring to. You also mentioned your grandmother, and I'm wondering if the healing practices that you use come from both groups, like, you know, your grandmother's teaching and the native teaching, and how those might have connected.
The native teaching was because I was raised on all islands. I'm blood quantum level, half Chamorro, okay? My grandmother was Japanese, but she doesn't, it's different here in Hawaii where she's local Japanese, which means that she was brought up in the plantation days, which means that all these people from all over the world had to come together, and they had camps, you know, the Japanese camp, the Portuguese camp, the Chinese camp, all of those different, and they had to talk together and understand. So I speak, like I think I told you earlier, fluent Pidgin, and it's a beautiful language. So it's like we're, you know, chop suey, yeah? We all mix up, yeah, whatever you have, or making stew or whatever, right? So I think it's the woven in of my blood quantum levels, how I was raised, where I was raised, the foods we eat, all of that make me me. I don't know if I answered that, but there wasn't a divination, in other words, between this and this. The only thing that you brought up for me was that although I was raised at a very young age, very spiritual like that from my grandmother, when I went to Guam at that time, 99% of the people there were Roman Catholics. And Guam was colonized 3 times, basically. And so I grew up with that very strict Roman Catholic upbringing too. That was difficult. And what I realized that taught me is how Indigenous people were colonized. And I'll give you one example without going further about it, is the Santeria. Now the Santerias, those Indigenous people came from Africa. And they were taken all over the world, and they hid their indigenous beliefs in the saints just so that they can hold on to, you know, their spiritual beliefs. Well, we did kind of the same thing. And a lot of Indigenous people, I can safely say this, some of my people that practice medicinal healing, they may tell you, you ever had those aunties that, yeah, just put some salt inside the stew, but they don't tell you how much, or, you know, it's sort of like that. They sort of keep things a little bit sacred, yeah, quiet. And then when you're ready, they'll share it with you. Yeah. So.
For the benefit of our audience who might not be also as familiar with a lot of the history and the traditions you're describing, I'm going to ask a question. It might feel maybe reductive in a way, but I'm going to ask it just so that, you know, because we're also asking these questions to each of our panelists as well. So if you had someone who, like in my world, right, showed up with symptoms of what we would call maybe a depression or an anxiety, how would you work with them? I think it's such a great idea that you said that, you know, everyone is a child of God, right? There isn't anything wrong with you. And yet here they are, maybe there's some suffering there. So
yes.
How would you maybe work with that? What would it look like if you could give us an example?
What I do when people come to see me is I simply ask them, you know, first I love on them, you know, that I feel honored to be here. It is really an honor to listen to someone, to sit with someone. The greatest thing we can give is our time to a person. So I would sit with them and I'll ask them to tell me, you know, basically, um, in other words, if I were to hold your hand, take me through one day of your life. I can, yes, I'm trained as a clinical psychologist. So I have that going on in the back, right? So yes, there are some people that still are experiencing depression and anxiety. We all get depressed and anxious. I do, you know, and I'm not, you know, it's like that's just who I am. And a lot of people are like that. But as I get to know the client and they tell their story, then I begin to train them in what I've learned and what I live, that there are two experiences in our world, and that is love and fear. And out of fear comes all these personal stuff, yeah, that whether you want to go CBT, psychodynamic, or whatever, you know, we grew up however you want to diagnose someone, but that is to be honored, right? All that personal stuff, because that fear or that anxiety, that depression is speaking very loudly to that individual. And so let's listen to that. I would ask you, where within your body do you feel it? The body has tremendous amount of knowledge if we only listen. Yeah, instead of shutting it down. And, you know, and again, I am embodied entity. So I'm going to have issues like that. What is that saying? Physician, know thyself. Remember that? Some philosopher said that, and he was right. You have to really know your personal if you want to move towards your profound. Maslow was right. You start at the bottom. You cannot run up the hill. You gotta kind of like this. And sometimes you go, woo, then you go up again, right? It's life. It's beautiful.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left together.
Okay.
So I wanted just to say, you know, what I heard you say right now was that the illness is born from fear, and the healing is to to I don't know, steer them towards love. I don't know how to put it, but
Beautiful.
is that how you would see it? The illness, whatever it might be, is born from.
Right. Right. Yes. And you're absolutely right. It's the healing. This entity, this vehicle, becomes the expression of love. I know this, that there's only one thing that heals, and that's love. I believe because love doesn't see darkness or suffering. Our personal does, though. And yes, ladies, I'll leave you with, I do get really pissed off. And I do curl into fetal position. Sometimes I just do. And I allow myself to do that. This is so much fun. I miss you guys from the last time I saw you to now. But yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to tell the people who has joined us, mahalo plenty. That's thank you very much. From my world to yours, I love all of you. From my island, hafa day and aloha.
Look forward to again meeting with you, with all of our other healers and other experts, to talk to each other more.
With us today our Mongolian shaman speaker Bat Ulzi, who and we have for her interpreter Elma Bata with us. And we're so excited to have you both here. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to learn these traditions from Ba'uzi. Let me give an introduction for Ba'uzi. So she is a Mongolian shaman and traditional healer who studied for 4 years at an agricultural university in Mongolia to initially become a veterinarian. Since 2008, Ba'uzi received a shamanic calling and has been practicing divination and healing through spirits. Since then, she's dedicated herself to learning Mongolian shaman rituals in order to help others overcome the difficulties and challenges in life. She's really focused on keeping traditional healing methods and using them to diagnose and balance and cleanse auras, chakras, and polluted mindsets. Additionally, Ba'uzi is trying to help the younger generation learn about the harmony between human life and nature to improve sense of well-being. Ba'uzi also studied psychology in 2014 for a few years and worked for about 4 years as a counselor at one of the local clinics in Mongolia. And since then, she has been traveling all over the world. She's been to 10 countries to share about Mongolian shamanic teachings. And so we're very excited to have her with us today so that we can also learn from her. So we'll go ahead and start. We would love to learn more about the history of Mongolian shamanic healing. What could she share with us about the history?
За нөгөө эхний өөрөөс ч одоо Батүлзийгээс асуух эхний асуулт маань болохоор одоо бид нар өнөөдөр Монголын бөөгийн түүхийн талаар, бөөгийн зан үйлийн түүхийн талаар илүү мэдэж аммаар байна. Та энэ тухай нартай мэдлэгээ хуваалцсан уу?
За энэ өдрийн минь төргий.
Good morning.
Монгол бөөгийн түүх уламжлалт зан үйл бол одоо ер нь хүн төрөлхтөн бий болсон цагаас эхлээд үүссэн гэж үздэг. Учир нь одоо хүн анх бий болсон цагаас байгаль дэлхийтэйгээ харьцаж одоо гал гаргах, жишээ нь гал гаргаж одоо өөрийнхөө амьдрал ахуй хоол хүнсэндээ ашиглах тэр цагаас эхлээд одоо галаа шүтэж, за ус голтойгоо одоо тэр байгалийнхаа ус гол байгалийн хишиг одоо жимс үр тариа тэргүүтнийг одоо хүртэж ингэж одоо амьдрал ахуйтай байгальтайгаа харьцаж үүссэн энэ цагаас ахуулаад хүн гэдэг амьтан бол одоо байгаль ихээ шүтэх одоо нар уул ус нар сараа одоо шүтэх тэргээр одоо байгалийн нар салхины сарны одоо тэр хүчийг ашиглаж цаг агаараа тодорхойлох ч юм уу одоо ерөөсөө л энэ анх байгаль хүн болсон цагаас ахвал байгаль хүн хоорондын харилцаанаас л энэ бөө мөргөлийн зан үйл одоо үүссэн.
За би ингээд чамайг нэг хэсэг ярьсны дараа ингээд тасалж байгаа орчуулъя шүү. Тэмдэглэл авсан байгаа. So the Mongolian shamanism started as the same time when the human started in this universe. Basically, when the humans started, they started connecting with the surroundings, which is the nature. And then they started fire and then nature. So that's what they're trying to find the connection and then have to make their survival using those tools. And eventually it developed to learn about the nature, about the moon and sun and wind and all about the weather and how they can live in a harmony to improve their life and to improve their well-being. So all the things on the nature, animal, and all those things are there in their connection as they're reading and finding the information how they survive. And that's how they started learning how to heal and how to connect and how to develop or improve their lifestyle and health as well.
So it sounds like since the beginning of time is what she's saying.
Тэгэхээр ер нь хүн төрөлхтөн үүссэн цагаас л эхэлж энэ зам үйл байсан гэж бодож хэлж байна. Yes.
Thank you, Alma. So, and Ba'uzi, thank you. So, in the United States, we have emotional disorders or mental illness as we know it. And you know, we call it things like depression or anxiety. I'm not sure if she's familiar with those concepts. Maybe I'll stop there so that you could check in with her before I go on.
За барууны орон буюу ер нь манай энэ Америкийн нэгдсэн Америк улсад одоо хүний эрүүл мэнд, сэтгцийн эрүүл мэндийн гажиг, хүний сэтгцийн өвчлөлүүд айгүйх байдаг. Жишээлбэл нөгөө гүн хямралд орох, сэтгэлийн гутралд орох, одоо юм санаа зовнохч гэдэг ч юм уу ямар нэгэн асуудлаас болоо энэ нь тэгээ явандаа нөгөө сэтгэл мэдрэлийн өвчин буюу сэтгцийн өөрчлөлтүүд бол эмгэгүүд болдгоо. Энэ тал дээр ер нь өөрийн чинь бодол.
За ер нь бол одоо ингээд орчин үед Монголд төдөгөө гадаадын ингээд хүмүүсийн сэтгэл зүй бол айгүй гутралд ордог болсон. Юунаас болж байгаа нэхээр байгаль ихтэйгээ харьцаа байсан. Амьд тийм харьцаа, хүн хоорондын амьд харилцаа бас үүсэх нь багассан. Одоо яг л юм нэг дөрвөлжин энэ ханан дотроо одоо энэ дотроо ингээд ихэнх өдрийг ихэнх цагаа өнгөрүүлж байна. Тийм учраас хүн одоо гарч байгаль ихтээрээ яг юм хөрсөн дээр одоо атлаа гიშггүй дан зэмэнтэн асфальтын зам дээр гიშгэж байна. Тэгэхээр хүн одоо яг байгаль их газраасаа хөлнийхөө улаар энэ эрчим энерги авдаг бол энийг одоо гадаа гарсан ч гэсэн авч чадахгүй хөрш шорон дээр яг амьд байгаль дээр гიშггүйгээс болж байна. Хоёрдугаар болохоор хүн гэдэг амтан бол өдөр бүр
ихний хэсгийг би орчуулчих. Би ингээд дахиад өгвөл үлзээ. Би ингээд дахиад өгвөл тас өгүүлбэрээ зогсоорой би тэгээ орчуулна. I'm just letting her know that when I'm gonna start translating because sometimes it's too long. So yeah, all those mental health problems and depression, anxiety, and stress is happening not just to Americans, it's happening to everyone in the world. The main reason why it's happening is that because humans as originated, they were or they are living on this earth, but now why it's happening more than before is because humans disconnected their relationship with the nature, and then they secluded themselves in a four wall and just focusing on the daily life, and they are not paying attention to the nature, and they're not going out to connect with the nature, get more energy and healing or distract. They just sit in between the four wall, and then even they're walking on this cement, and all this road and things is disconnecting them from the earth, from the real nature. And that's what means they distance themselves from the real energy, real nature, and real life.
Thank you. That was so informative. So it sounds like Baulzi believes that the healing power comes from all things natural.
Хэлгүй яхаа одоо тэгээд байгаль хүнийг бол угаасаа байгалийн амьтан гэж үздэг.
Of course, because humans are the animal of the nature, like other animals.
Тийм учраас одоо хүн хэдий ч нэ байгальтайгаа ойрхон байна. Төдий ч нэл сэтгэл санаа амгалан байгалаасаа одоо баян хүчийг авч идэг. Одоо тасалгааны ургамал цэцэг хүртэл одоо өдөр бүр усалж тэрнтэйгээ харьцахгүй бол үхтгэе адил хүн гэдэг амьтан бол өдөр бүр л тэр байгалийнхаа гадаа гарч байгальтайгаа харьцаж талархаж одоо залбирснараад гадаад болон дотоод сэтгэлийн хүчийг баян авч идэг.
So as the simple example, the flower in the room needs some water or some attention. The same way a human needs some attention, which they need to go out to the nature and get more energy and heal on a daily basis, because they are not doing it on a daily basis. And yeah, as long as the humans or we stay closer to the nature, we will get more energy. And not just go out and get energy, also we have to do to express our gratitude to the nature or to our surroundings, and we have to pray and bless what we have.
Great, that's helpful. So It sounds, the way you are interpreting for her, it sounds like she's had some experience already working with people that might have these emotional, emotional suffering. Can she talk a little bit about maybe even an example of how she would advise someone, or we use the word treat, I don't know if that's appropriate to say, but how she would work with someone who's really suffering, emotionally? What would she do with them?
So first I will meet the person and then look at him or her and then diagnose what is happening with that person. Is it the emotional change or emotional suffering or emotional distraction or some other emotional disorder? And then how I diagnose which one is, because I connect with my spirits to read that person's what is happening. And thanks, with the help of my spirits, I realize what is happening. And then after that, based on what is my diagnosis, I choose how to heal. So it depends on what is wrong with the person and why it's happening. I have so many different healing, which is, should I use nature, water, or river, or fire, like shamanic cleansing. Yeah. The other one was just singing or music, or even the wind. And then all those natural resources are my tools to heal and to help that person to get over that suffering.
Тэгээд одоо жишээ нь одоо их тийм сэтгэл санааны гүнзгий хямралд орсон юм хүмүүсийг хвчлэн одоо байгальд гарахаас гадна усаар бас их засахад илүү үр дүнтэй байдаг.
So for example, if someone is really depressed because of some reason, and my main healing method is water cleansing. Usually I take them to the ocean or river or natural water. And first, before I do that ceremony, cleansing ceremony, I'll ask the permission from the nature, the surroundings of that water. And then later, I let them know that who I brought, who is this person, like reading the information through my spirits and also reading that person's, my client's ancestors' information. And then we do the ceremony, like after letting them, introducing the person, and we do the offering ceremony, which is asking permission and asking the healing power to send us to help this person. Offering also depends on where we are. Sometimes it's different things. And we do the also blessing and chanting to the water. And then keep that person next to the water, because water is the strongest cleaning or cleansing tool in shamanic rituals. So that way the spirit of water, after we do all those things, that spirit of water will recognize the person and us, and then will help or send us the energy to help that person. And we can even shower or wash the person in the water or with the water. And what else she was saying? Yeah, the first thing is not just ask to help. Before that, we show our respect to the water and the nature. And then after all those ceremonial things, the person will stay calm, especially the sound of the water, the flowing water, running water is also very helpful to someone's mind is very, very depressed.
That's great. That's great. One maybe last or final question. She also has some exposure to psychology, which she studied a little bit. is there anything out of the approaches that she studied in psychology that she finds useful or she uses in her healing and incorporates with her traditional methods? There might not be, but just curious.
За баярлалаа.
Thank you.
Маш сайхан асуулт байна.
That's a good question.
За одоо миний бөөгийн зан үйл бол байгалийн хүчийг ашиглаж одоо хүнийг оншилж, эмчилж.
Of course, my studying about the psychology helped me a lot. Have to do my traditional healing as a shaman, and mostly in the shaman tradition and in my shamanic healing, I use the natural force and natural healing. But then later, based on my studying, I learned more about how to look into the person's mind, how to read it. And in order to read it, that I have to look at the person and also what is the body language, what is their talk to them, what is their body language, how they look, how they move, and how they talk. So all those things is I learned from the school, and also that's why my healing power is doubled a few times. I mean, more than just using the traditional healing. And also, yeah, it helped me a lot how to read the person's mind based on all those things.
Thank you.
So interesting and fascinating. I think we could probably stay on for a lot longer with so many more questions, and she's been, Ba'uzi, so generous for sharing everything she has with us. We hope that you can join us for the live discussion panel. To our audience who's watching now, we hope to have all our panelists back so that you have an opportunity to ask your questions and hear their voices as they respond to you. That will be on June 13th. So more details to come. And we want to thank Ba'uzi for being with us here today, as well as you, Elma Bata, for interpreting's hard work. This would be impossible without you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're joining us from the world. I am happy to be here with our speaker, panelist for the day, Tsiring Wangmo Kimsar. She's presently known as Tsiring Wangmo Bhutia. And as she just educated me a few minutes ago, Bhutia is a travel status given when she and her family were in India. Tsiring is of Tibetan origin, but raised in India. Her parents are from the southeastern part of Tibet in a village called Yatung Chumbi Valley. They fled Tibet when China occupied Tibet in 1959 and landed in India. Tsiring's parents are from a lineage of bona fide practitioners of what's called Yungdrung Pun, which is a spiritual tradition of Tibet that dates back, you said 18,000 years, is that correct?
Yes.
It's hard for me to conceive of something that has been around for so many years. And, you know, your parents and your family are holders of this tradition. And you've grown up kind of learning from them this specific healing rituals involving appeasing local spirits, using folk remedies, among other practices. And so we're really excited to hear more about that today. Just for a little bit of background information, Tsiring joins us from the Bay Area, California. She is currently working as a aftercare program and also volunteers at Consider the Homeless, ! Which is based in Berkeley. And she has hobbies such as cooking, gardening, storytelling, and hiking. Her current husband or partner is a lama. Is that right?
Right.
And so it sounds like he also contributed to today's talk from your discussions with him. So we're happy to have the expertise of both of you. So that's who we're going to be speaking with today. And I'll just start us off with the first question, which is, could you tell us, it's a broad question, but could you tell us a little bit, for those of us who know nothing about Yungdrung Pun, a little history about it?
Sure. First of all, Tashi Dele, and greetings to everyone who's watching this recording. My name is Tsering Wangmo. I live in Bay Area. I'm a Tibetan born in India. And I'm very honored, and thank you very much for Jennifer and Shruti for inviting me to share my knowledge and my experiences growing up with this indigenous tradition of Tibet. So this tradition, the indigenous tradition, the native religion of spiritual tradition of Tibet is called Yungdrung Pun tradition that dates back 18,000 years ago. And the name of the founder is called Buddhatompa Sherab Myoche. So he brought this teaching in Tibet. So it originated and from Xiangzhou, a country called Xiangzhou, which is presently the Iranian-speaking Tajikistan between central and north Tibet. So they, when he taught these teachings, there are these doctrines and teachings. There are particularly these healing rites and rituals. It is he taught in Yungdrung Pun tradition as a 9 ways of burn, or 9 cycles or vehicles of burn, or 9 successive stages of burn. So in Tibetan, it's called Tikpa Rimba Gu, which means 9 successive stages of burn. So in this 9 stages of burn, so it is again internally classified into 4 ways. In this system, the first classification of the system is Chashin Tikpa. That means the way of prediction. So in the way of prediction, it falls the divination, Mo, astrology, Thi, ritual, To, or Shabde, and medicine or examination of the cause is called Che, or medicine. So all these ritual, Shabde, To, so that falls in the 3rd category of what we are going to talk about. So he taught these doctrines and beliefs to different levels of people based on their mental capacity, the need, and necessity. So he taught this in, as I said earlier, a place called Tagzik Omolungring. That is the central part of the Iranian-speaking area, Tajikistan. And there are about 360 rituals, out of which 65 are remaining currently because of the political persecution and loss of text. So then when I was growing up, I saw my uncle, especially my mother's brother, performing all these rituals at home. We have yearly, appeasing the spirits ritual, spirits residing on the rocks and trees, and we call Sada, landlord. And when we put prayer flags, we have to get the permission, seek permission from the landlord before we put the prayer flags. And we offer them 3 whites and 3 sweets, which is like yogurt, butter, milk, honey, and the molasses. In Indian language, it's called gur, which is the byproduct of sugarcane called molasses, and that's 3 whites and 3 sweets. So we offer that, and then we offer grains. And before we start, if somebody's digging a ground to construct a house or putting a pillar or something, before you're digging, you get the permission. You appease the landlord of that area, and then do the offering. So I have seen those rituals, and also soul and life force rituals, and death ransom, and clearing of obstacles, casting away of effigies of resembling oneself. So yeah, and then offering of the ceremonial cake as a karmic debts. Then cleansing with water, cleansing with, and then we have a special ritual called, what do you call, kago gitu. That is more like a commanding the forces to let go of that person. So it's it's a little bit like a wrathful ritual. So those kind my uncle used to perform, and I grew up watching that. And also when the priest and the lamas come from our tradition, they will perform that a yearly 1,000 food offering and 1,000 butter lamp offering. Sometimes it's 100 offering. And then especially one ritual that I like is my mother. She does talking with your personal protector. So when we or family members or relatives are down in trouble, very sad, or something's happening in the family, she will go into the shrine room and she will talk to the deities. She will talk to the personal. So we felt like she has a hotline connection with the deities and the personal protectors. Yeah.
Wow. It sounds like there's so many different kinds of practices. Like when you were listing the practices that your uncle, that you grew up watching your uncle engage in.
Yes.
For someone that's a bit ignorant about these practices, I'm wondering if there's a set of actions for each type of practice, or is there the same action for all the practices? So for example, if you're cleansing, and then you're also making offering, is it done with like the same materials? Is there the same ritual, or does each of these practices have a different ritual? Does that make sense?
Yes. So each ritual is different,
Okay.
but the base is, again, though this ritual, we have Sutra, Tantra, Dzogchen. Some are high level. The Dzogchen is the highest level. So where you don't need all these rituals, you try to meditate and, heal with the elements yourself. You can do it. Some you have to request in the monastery or a lay person who's a practitioner of this tradition do it. And some you can do it yourself. But the base is, again, the compassion. It's all based on compassion, these rituals also. But the materials, yes, each ritual has a different kind of materials. Sometimes the practitioner himself bring the text is different and the items and the tools are different. But most of the time, it's, if you round up, same kind of things. You need butter lamp, you need roasted barley flour to make ceremonial cakes, and you need 5 elements fabrics, you need feather. So basic same, but the chanting is different, the prayers are different, the mantras are different, but its basics are same.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these materials, these items such as feathers and different foods and other items, was this originated from the Iranian-speaking part of Central Asia that you were talking about before, or has it evolved over?
It's evolved. I think they were doing it. I'm not sure exactly, but when Buddha Tumpa Sherab taught these people the soul and life force retrieval, so it's all in the text, and that text is not, a new, like a recent text. It's been there for 18,000 years. So everything in the text, the materials we try to gather here, and it seems like they did the same way. Maybe they have a different, kind, but now instead of barley flour, people, for the ceremonial cake, people use Play-Doh.
Oh.
It's easier, yeah. And then for food color, people use, I don't know, different kind of food color. Back then it was plant. I don't know. It's now people use beetroot. So it evolves. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's important to know. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. I know that you've lived in the U.S. for quite some time now. You were in Virginia, now you're in the Bay Area.
Mhm.
So you're familiar with this idea of mental illness in the United
Correct.
States, right?
Yes.
So illnesses such as anxiety, depression
Mhm.
are some of the common ones that people
Mhm.
face. In your family's tradition, in their practice, how would they see these illnesses and how would they treat them?
Okay. So mental illness, in Tibetan tradition, when somebody is not feeling well, when somebody's vitality, or we call it authentic self, called lungta, when it's down, we don't right away say, okay, it's something to do with your mental health. So what we do is we consult a priest or even a community, head of the community, a senior citizen, he or the elders, we call them. So elders will tell them like, okay, you look like your soul is lost. You don't have luster on your face. You feel you're not the same person. You don't have glow. We call it ndang. You don't have ndang on your face. So you need some kind of ritual, soul and life force retrieval ritual, and along with the death ransom. Or it looks like you need to raise a prayer flag. So prayer flag is very important in our culture, raising prayer flag to uplift your long lost vitality and authentic self, lungta. So lungta means wind horse. So why wind horse is back in Tibet, horse was a very important mode of transportation. Very handsome, galloping stallion, those are. So when you feel you're on top of the horse, you feel like your vitality is raised, your energy is high, and all the qualities of the horse is absorbed in you. So you feel you are very uplifted. So that's how one way you do it. And the other way is detecting through your dreams. Yeah, so that is the person. My mother used to do dream, how do you call it? Dream prediction. So she will say, okay, I think this year or this month, you need to either request for ritual, or you need to put some prayer flags because I didn't have a good dream about you. So how do you detect dreams? So sometimes it's somebody else dream for you. Sometimes you dream yourself, like running naked down the hill, cutting your hair and losing your teeth. And even, somebody snatching your teacup and drinking tea or any beverages in a broken or chipped cup. Those are your energy indicates that your energy level is going down, or your soul is getting weakened or degenerating. So when you have that, then you consult an astrologer or a priest or some elders in the community and have your chart done, like a horoscope, a yearly horoscope done. And then based on that horoscope or the divination, then it will say in the result of the divination or the chart, like, okay, this year you have this kind of obstacle, so you need this ritual. So, you know, and based on your favorable day, we got Laza soul day and favorable. Everyone born under the 12 animals that, you know, astrologic animals have soul day, favorable day, and unfavorable day. Yeah, we call Sogza, Laza. So, so based on that, so when you do the ritual, you try to do it on your soul day, and then you try to avoid journey on the unfavorable day, or if you're starting a new business or venture or anything, you start to do on a favorable day and try to avoid on unfavorable day. So, and then after the ritual, you'll have a dream, or you will immediately see how you portray, and the dreams will change, and internally you feel very good, you feel uplifted. And then at the same time, then you see a herbalist or a doctor, and that also you'll say, okay, favorable doctor or unfavorable doctor. Sometimes you go to that doctor number of times, but the medication doesn't work very well. So you change the doctor and see if that doctor works for you or not. So that's how we look at it. And right away, not like a heavy dose of medication. So we'll see if there is a way to get the ritual done and then see the doctor. So combination of two works together. That's how we believe.
Thank you for sharing that. And I can see that we're coming close to our time here, so I want to respect your time. And I wonder if we could just take the last few minutes to talk about meditation and mindfulness. I know it's a bigger topic, but I just wonder if you could speak a little bit to mindfulness as you know it in your tradition.
Okay, so in Tibetan spiritual tradition, meditation is called Gom. Gom means to contemplate or to focus. And for mindfulness, we call it Trempa or Tongnang or Trempa-chen or Tongnang-chen for mindfulness. So, but we don't use quite often as a mindfulness. But in colloquial, we'll say, you know, be a little bit mindful when you are talking about somebody, or when you're walking past the neighbor, be mindful. But we don't use this word as often as be like a mindfulness. Tibetans are raised, you know, I think we have implanted the mindfulness here so much, like you have to be careful walking there, you have to be careful doing this, or, you know, that's why I think we don't use that word quite often. But meditation, how meditation helps. We do a 5 elements meditation, healing through the 5 elements. And actually my husband wrote a book on healing forms through elements. And so when you do the healing, meditation on, we call it Sa, Chu, Me, Lung, Namka. So Sa, earth, Chu, water, Me, water, fire, Lung, wind, Namka is sky, space. So when you meditate in the space, what you're trying to get is the sky is the limitless, no boundaries. And you try to, in the morning, at the sunrise, facing to the west, here we're talking about sky gazing. So facing to the west, and you open your eyes big and mouth and just contemplate on the vastness of the sky. And then feel that you are retrieving the essence from the sky, the vastness, the limitless, the sky. And then feel that that's absorbing in you, and all your obstacles, your uneasiness, the lethargic, the heaviness, all are fading away like clouds. So that's how you do this. And same with the fire. When you're near the fire, you feel like you are getting the essence of the fire element quality of that. So warmth, welcoming, and getting nourishment for the fire. And your all pain and the uneasiness, the heaviness is all getting burned away, dissolving out. So same with the wind, getting qualities and the essence of the wind quality and blowing away all your pain, bad energy, negativities, everything is blowing away with that. And for 30 minutes a day, that will be very helpful. With the water, same thing. You contemplate with the quality of the water and feel like you're getting the essence of the water element and washing away all your negativities, all of that. So same with the, earth element. So sitting on the ground, the gravity and you're getting quality of the earth element and dissolving in you all the essence and feeling very stable, calm with the earth element, and basically connecting with all these elements and getting to know them and getting their good essence and quality in you, and then meditate on that. And then you will certainly feel you were worked up, you are just, running around hazy. You feel very calm, and it's really helping you. That's how we do the 5 elements meditation.
Wow, just listening to you speak about it, I actually felt calmer because I was picturing what you were saying. Even though I'm not meditating now, I was picturing it, and I immediately felt my body just kind of settle.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that
And
was
sometimes what I do is do nothing. I just do nothing meditation. Don't focus. It's very hard for people to focus, especially where I teach right now. I have kindergartens. They cannot focus on these elements or anything. So to do nothing for a few seconds, they do it very well. They keep quiet and close your eyes and close their eyes. Some do this way, some do this way, some are doing this way, but for a few seconds, do nothing and listening to the silence. That really helps also sometimes. Yeah.
Sering, that is such a gift that you just gave us. I mean, all this whole time, everything you've said is such a gift. But I just very much appreciate the gifts you bestowed upon us. I'm so grateful for your wisdom and for sharing your knowledge with us. And I know that there's so much more to talk about. And so I look forward to having you back for the panel in June, if you're able to make it, so that our viewers can also prepare a few questions that they might have and to continue to learn from you.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here. And thank you everyone who's watching. It's a really honor to be here. Thank you.